In the following presentation, I will present information gathered from a general education and special education teacher interview based on the similarities and differences in teaching literacy in the classroom. I interviewed 2 general education teachers at the high school level, as well as 2 special education teachers at the high school level. This question was one of the biggest eye-openers for me, based on what should the relationship be between the general education teacher and special education teacher. Both did feel that it's very important and that it's crucial even, and that communication is huge when it comes to this relationship. We also did agree that if the relationship between the general education teacher and special education teacher is not good, then the student ultimately is going to struggle because those 2 teachers are not going to be communicating like they should be. And we also agree that we need to work together to make accommodations and modifications for special needs students in the general education classroom. The differences were not all general education teachers understand the needs of their students and how they learn best, and even how to ask for help. We also had differences on how often they should communicate and how often should the general education and special education teacher be meeting. Should they be meeting on a weekly or monthly basis, or is there some other way that the communication could be opened even more? The similarities when it came to the curriculum vision were pretty identical when I talked to all of the teachers. Basically, that we need to have the same ideas and use the same language when we're teaching. Our school also has PBIS, and it's the same idea where we have to use the common language so the students know what to be expecting and what they should be learning. Both the general education and special education teacher need to have the same outcome in the end, knowing what is the outcome, what are we pushing forward to, and also knowing what we want the students to learn and be successful in. Ultimately, what's the end goal? And that kind of ties in with curriculum outcomes as well. Some of the differences are, should it be objective or subjective? Should the classroom teacher or special education teacher have the final say in did they learn the material, or are they still struggling with the material? And then also, should students be using the same curriculum as general education students, or should we be modifying it? At what point does that decision have to be made, and who makes that decision? The curriculum outcome is one that I really do believe ties in really well with the curriculum vision. Because if we don't have a vision of where we want our students to eventually be with our curriculum, then we're never going to have a clear picture of what our outcomes are. The really great thing about this question is we didn't have any differences to report, that all the teachers did agree that our curriculum outcomes need to be the results from the curriculum that we have. Were our students successful? What changes could we have done, or what changes can be made in the future so our students would be more successful? Ultimately, what our goal is, we want our students to learn, and using those curriculum outcomes is very important to know that our students are learning and being successful in the end. When it comes to understanding all of the literacy standards, I believe we have teachers that are not aware at all that they are actually teaching literacy within their classroom. So the following slide is going to look at the similarities and differences between the general education and the special education teacher and their knowledge based on the literacy standards. When it comes to understanding and comprehending the literacy standards, it can get a little confusing because there are so many details that have to be covered. When we're talking about literacy standards, we're not just talking about one set of standards. We're talking about multiple tiers, including literacy, informational text, foundational skills, range of text, writing, speaking and listening, and language skills. Those all fall underneath the literacy standards. And as general and special education teachers, we must work together to know what the IEP states, especially in regards to the literacy standards. As a team together, general and special education teachers may have to get inventive with their thinking to meet the needs of our students when it comes to meeting the standards. For example, if we have a student who has a disability and has an IEP for a writing goal, maybe they are not able to write quite yet, we have to get inventive as a team together on how to move that student forward in their learning and how to help them progress to possibly, hopefully, at some point, becoming a better writer. We also agreed that all teachers should be aware of the standards and are aware of the standards, but our differences are the level of comfort with understanding the standards, and it definitely differs between teacher to teacher, and I found that just interviewing the 4 teachers I interviewed for this project. Also, there's a lot of special education teachers that struggle with getting students to meet all of the standards. And I could say we even have general education teachers that are struggling to get students to meet all of the standards, let alone even more complicated students, possibly with their IEP goals and maybe lack of understanding or lack of understanding when it comes to certain standards. And last but not least, one difference that we saw was that one special education teacher said that these standards should be incorporated into the language arts curriculum, where the other special education teacher and general education teachers stated that these standards should actually be incorporated in all classrooms throughout a student's day. We cannot just put the literacy standards on one particular subject, because if we do that, that's a lot of pressure on that one particular teacher instead of sharing the duties like we need to be doing with literacy, because every single teacher is teaching literacy in some form or the other in their classroom on a daily basis. Throughout these interviews, I have learned actually quite a bit. One of the most crucial things being the partnership between the general education teacher and the special education teacher. We are facing so many obstacles today in the classroom with students who are learning at different rates, students who have IEP accommodations, and the partnership between the general ed teacher and the special education teacher is more crucial than ever. We also have special ed teachers and general education teachers who do not want to work together. While some gen ed teachers feel that the special education teachers aren't working with them, the special education teachers are feeling the exact same thing, that the general education teachers are not wanting to work with them. Special education teachers may need to provide a little more support for our teachers who are struggling with understanding IEPs and all of the details that go along with them, along with accommodations. We need to bridge the gap and bring it together and assist our students to increase their learning no matter what level they are at. We also need more training or assistance with helping all teachers in all classrooms realize they are incorporating literacy standards of some sort every day in their teaching. I think we have so many teachers that do not realize how much literacy they are actually teaching, whether it's visual literacy in the art classroom or reading or writing in a government classroom or even in a math classroom. We need to help them connect with that they are doing that actually without even realizing it. And we also need to realize how important that relationship is between the general education and special education teacher. Because again, if we do not have that strong relationship and open communication, our students ultimately are going to struggle in the end, and they are going to be the ones that suffer from the non-communication between the special education teacher and general education teacher. Some of the ideas that we came up with on how we can create more similarities than differences would be to have an open relationship where questions and concerns can be expressed between the general education teacher and special education teacher. The big one is just to simply communicate. If there's an issue going on or if we have a question, we have to be able to communicate. We also have to keep the student's best interest in mind. If we really see a special education or general education student struggling, we have to be able to change up our teaching or to do whatever is in the student's best interest to help them learn. Again, ask for help from the special ed teacher. So important to be able to do this. I also think having the ability to get the special education teachers to maybe visit the classrooms or ask for updates on students' progress. I think if we were able to get the special education teachers out into the general teachers' classrooms more, we might be able to build that relationship a little more than we already have. And ultimately, having the special education teacher provide support when it comes to the accommodations that are in the IEP. I think sometimes general education teachers get a little lost in the accommodations that we need to make, and just having that support, I think, would make a huge difference as well. Ultimately, partnership is key in the school setting. Perfect example. I use this picture for a reason. If we are not able to work together and all have a piece of the puzzle to put together to help our students, then we have to question, what are we really doing in the school setting at that point? We have to be able to work together as partners in learning and partners for our students to help them succeed and to help them learn. I would like to thank you for listening to my presentation and share one of my favorite quotes about teaching. I'm changing the world one day at a time. I teach. And that is exactly what we have to do. We have to take each day, one day at a time, and help our students one day at a time. I promise you it will make a difference in the end. Thank you again.